Okay, so week 1 is count out loud. This is our verbal counting down from 10 to see how many exercises you can get in that 10 seconds. We're going to start by pulling out our when program starts block and lighting splat 1 with the color cyan. That is to show that that block is what you use for this activity. Each different way to track an exercise has a different color splat for it. Now that we have some blocks pulled out, I'm going to go ahead and save our project, just so we remember how to save our project. We're going to go with Fall Fitness Challenge Week 1. This week, you only need 1 splat to keep track of that exercise, and it definitely could be 1 or more players. And this project counts out loud from 10. We're going to save it, and then we're going to sync it to the game locker. That way it'll be available for everyone, whatever device you choose to use with your project. Let's go ahead and build the rest of the project and then save it again so we make sure it's updated. So when we start the program, that lights up the splat that we're going to use. To set up what the splat does, we need a function and a variable. The variable will be our number of what we count down from. So we're going to call it the variable count. This variable is just a number that we gave a name to and that we can change anytime during our program. So we're going to need to set count to something. So we're going to pull that block out. Now we're going to contain a couple of blocks inside a function to make the program easier to read. That function is going to be called count out loud. And we're going to do that because all of this function is going to do is our counting out loud part of the code. Rather than have that just part of the code, it's nice to have it as a function block, and we can simplify what our code looks like. Inside this count out loud function, let's get that set up. So inside the count out loud function, we're going to have a while block. And inside that while block, we're going to have our say block, which is what will do the actual saying of the numbers. What we're saying is the count variable, so we need that count variable block. And we're going to snap that count variable block into that say block. After it says the number that we want it to say, we're going to want it to delay for a second to give the program a second to finish saying the number. If you don't use the delay block, it's just going to count the variables off very quickly, count the numbers off too quickly, and it will mess up the timing of your program. So after it says the count number, and we're going to initialize what that count number is here later, but once it says that count number and then delays for a second, we want it to lower that number by 1. This will have the effect of starting with 10, it'll say 10, and then lower it to 9, it'll say the number 9, lower that by 1 again, and then say the number 8, and so on until it gets to 0. And we want this to be -1. So rather than counting up, it will count down. We want it to keep doing this saying the number and delaying and reducing as long as the count is more than 0. So we're going to need a math block with a greater than or less than symbol. And we need our count variable to be greater than the number 0. So when we use the count out loud block, as long as our count function is more than 0, it'll say that number, wait a second, and then change that number by -1. So let's now use that in our program. So we want that to be inside a when splat pressed block so that you can hit your splat and you'll know it'll start your countdown. We want a little bit of feedback to show that you pressed that splat. So we want a light splat button, light splat block. This light splat block will turn the splat yellow when we press it. So it'll be cyan when the program starts. As you press it, it turns yellow and makes a sound. We want that sound to be ref whistle because it's a sports sound. And it's also very clear and pretty loud, so it's a very good feedback. So we grab our sports sound block, snap it into our sound block, get that ref whistle running. At this point in the program, we want to set our count variable to 10 because that's how many seconds we want our activity to run for. So when we press the splat, it'll go from cyan to yellow. It'll play the ref whistle sound, and then it'll set count to 10. If you left it right there, it wouldn't do much else. All you would hear is a ref whistle and nothing else. Now we're going to use our count out loud function and pull its block out and snap it into place. So right now, if we press the splat, it'll turn yellow, play our whistle sound, set our count variable to 10, and then start counting. After it's done counting, we want to add a little bit of delay so the program has a chance to catch up and you can finish completing your activity. We're going to use that ref whistle sound again. So we're going to right click / long press on it, duplicate it, which will also duplicate the block that's snapped inside, and then snap that in at the bottom. And then we're going to turn the splat cyan again to show that it's ready to start over. With this activity, you can use the same splat over and over again without having to press run potentially, and you can have back-to-back groups. So let's give that a quick test.
I'm ready to show off my skills.
I'm gonna worry about the code. So we press run. Do you want to
play that?
No. All right.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Did you keep track?
37.
Okay.
100.
Yes, I did 85. So you can see as we click run and we press our splat, it starts that countdown, starts at 10, reduces by 1, waits a second, and does that until you hear another whistle. So it's really, once you hear the whistle, you do your exercise as fast as you can while you're counting, and then you try again. So let's pull up our tracking sheet. We can do it right here. So we need our class tracking sheet and our student tracking sheet, which was linked in there. You said 3,700? Yes, 3,700. So we go to week 1. Inside of week 1, let's assume I made a copy of this. So you can do that by file, save, or file, make a copy. It takes a second to catch up. So you can write in here, student, in this case it'd be 2N, and 1 attempt to a high score of 3,700, which would give us a class average of 3,700. Now that would be probably pretty hard to beat, but it depends how many students you have.
I'm really carrying my class.
So, and then after you've filled in all of your student attempts, let's say that the average was, 4 or 16 or 16, and maybe someone else did 3,700. And there were a few attempts that people did. As you keep updating this, these averages will keep updating as you go. Once you have all of your students' attempts and high scores entered, you click your submission. The link shows up and you can submit your green box numbers there.
I used to teach 3rd grade, and my kids would just randomly, when we had indoor recess because of rain, they would just see how many push-ups they could do or how many random whatever they could do. It's like kids will take this and they'll be competitive and they'll have fun with it. And so make sure you send us photos and videos. We would love to see the kids in action doing these activities.
Yeah, and there's one important part that we want to go back and save our project. So we saved our project in the save section, and then we want to update our game locker so that it's saved in our game locker. Okay, and that's weeks 1 code and activity.